Life.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. So we are here today for our very exciting Women's Day celebration event. As you know, March is Women History Month, so we are here with an exciting panel. And I'd like all you to welcome for this event that PWiC and Open Seattle has arranged. Since I see a lot of new faces, so I'll give a brief introduction about the organizations. Open Seattle is basically a vibrant and enthusiastic group of people that we wanted to come together and essentially connect, learn, and basically grow together and discuss about entrepreneurship and learning opportunities. How can we give back to the community? How can we raise funds? How we can help each other grow? And so we have a session every second Wednesday of the month. And so we started it almost last year in November, and we'll continue to do so. So if you want to connect for any upcoming sessions, it's handled in the same room. And thank you, Educated, for having this venue for us. So let me give a brief introduction about PWiC. PWiC is women in women in computing organization with majorly focusing on women in technology and their allies. And our mission is to connect, learn, and grow together. And we are here, around the globe, helping each other and inspiring each other with our work, our efforts, and making sure that we can help each other grow in our careers at whichever stage we are, starting from students to startups, to corporate ladder, and whatnot. And that's where we have we wanted to have this session in collaboration with Open, so we can bring some really inspiring panel for you here today. I'll give a little bit of introduction about myself, and then I'll open. So today's topic is breaking the glass ceiling. And so we want to really learn about the journey of the struggles, the decision making, and how this diverse panel has basically reached that level of success. I think we all think that success is not just a fact of luck, but there's a lot more to it. So today we want to essentially learn what is the whole journey, what are the struggles, what are the day to day, what are the things that really matter. And so that's what we're going to focus today on. So I'm Ayisha Bashir. I'm a group engineering manager at Microsoft, and I started my tech career back from Pas Islamabad. I actually came from a pre-medical background, and then since I couldn't get into a medical college, I switched to computer science, and I made it to the end, and then I ended up with Microsoft, and I'm currently running our commerce experiences team, which is Microsoft Consumer Stores. For all purchases. And I'm also vice president for PWiC, and I'm an Open Seattle charter member. So with a lot of introduction, I'll just hop onto our amazing panelists here and ask them to please introduce themselves, because I don't think I can do justice here. So I'll start off with Muneeza. You want to start?
Yep, I can go. So I'm Muneeza. I've been in the tech industry for about 15 years, originally at Microsoft, then went to AWS, and then am at Splunk today, which is a machine data analytics company. And started actually in finance in Microsoft, and then over the course of the career moved into revenue planning, business planning, and then eventually product management today. And at Splunk, my team, the team I lead covers pricing, analytics, and product management across Splunk's portfolio, and product management team focuses on a bunch of outbound programs and initiatives. And I'm a mother of 3 high schoolers who are hopefully busy studying right now, fingers crossed. And we'll talk a little bit more about the day-to-day, but that's kind of my journey. Thank you.
I'm Fatima. I think what Muneeza and actually Mona, we all have in common is we both went to LUMS. So this is very much a LUMS panel. I've been at Microsoft for almost 21 years. So I started my journey in technology for 21 years. I currently lead the Office of the Chief Technology Officer at Microsoft. So really what it means is I look at technology strategy all across Microsoft and really think of what's coming up in the future, what's across the horizon, and how does that impact a company like Microsoft, how it impacts our technology industry, and what we should be doing across the board. So that's really what I spend most of my time doing. But somebody was asking me, so do you write code? Actually, no. Most of the time, I feel like I deal with people. So I feel sometimes I'm a counselor and a psychologist more than a technologist. But that's just the nature of what we do. And then I also have two kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So yes, I have a very interesting life between work and managing the kids.
My goodness, I have no kids. Oops. I do have 3 cats, 2 dogs, 6 hermit crabs.
Wow.
And we're negotiating 2 bunnies. So, hi, I'm Mona. Nice to meet all of you. It's really exciting. Fatima and I were in exactly the same batch in undergrad in computer science, and she was 1,000 times better at computer science than I ever was. So it started very much like Fatima as an engineer at Microsoft, moved into product management, left Microsoft, thought I didn't have to deal with people anymore. The big corporate ladder is not for me. And, then sort of helped many men build their companies and decided it was time to build my own and started Falcon about 2 years ago. We are a revenue analytics company. And what else can I tell you? It's not easy, but it's super fun. I wouldn't do anything else, and I'm excited to talk to all of you.
Thank you, Mona.
Mhm.
It's really exciting how the journey started somewhat, at the same place, but how it evolved very differently. So let's go with that, and maybe we can start off with Fatma. You mentioned 20 years career in Microsoft, and you started with product management, and you are at office of CTO today. When I think about my life day to day, I'm still I'm an engineering manager. I feel like it's tough in terms of decision making, and not even just dealing with people, but like kind of prioritizing and dealing with a lot of competition. So you at such a position, how do you handle competition, and are there things that help you? For example, like mentors or sponsorship, or what are the other things that kind of help you in that position?
I think there's stress in everything we do. Like different jobs have different kinds of stress, and you have to learn to figure out like what is your coping mechanism. Because I don't think that you can go anywhere where you can say there's no stress, but what works for you? What are the things? Understanding your own triggers, like what works and what helps you. I think that is super super valuable. And then I think over the course of your career, looking for things that maximize the things that you have fun and minimize the things that give you stress. And what gives you stress might be different from what gives somebody else stress. When I say that, okay, my job is a lot of dealing with people and kind of managing between that might give some people more stress. I find it enjoyable. I feel like I learn, I grow. So in that sense, like I've evolved my role and what I think I can do more towards that. So I think that's really really important for everyone as they think of their career. Is like what is the thing that really works for them. And then I think to get anywhere in your career, I think sponsors, mentors, it's all important. I think the way I look at it is it's not that you need to go out on a journey to say and ask people, will you be my mentor? Will you be my It actually doesn't work that way. I think a lot of these things and relationships happen organically. And when I say organically, it means like not that you're sitting at home and somebody will kind of show up. It's like go put yourself out there, go network, go get to know people, learn what they do, build relationships and connections before you actually need them. Because I think that's actually very, very important. As you build those relationships and as you connect with people and see how you can add value to people, you will find out that naturally from that group that you are cultivating, you will find people who will be willing to coach you and help you as well. And then same thing with sponsors. I think again, you cannot like just find a sponsor. I think it's about, have you built a relationship with somebody? Have you built your credibility with them? Have you shown them that you can add value? And then are you helping them? And you will find that people will be willing to kind of step out and help you. And I also think, like, at least for me right now, I look about paying it back. Like, I think that's the other thing is, like, when somebody says, oh, you need to build a network, the day you go to a big company, it doesn't mean you have to go and get to know the VP. What it means is you get to know people around you, and as you grow in your career, they will also grow in their career, and they will be in different places. So if you look at us, like, we all started together, but we're doing very different and interesting things. And so you know who to tap into and how to help and build that trusting relationship, because I think that trust is also very important in these kind of relationships.
I think that's a really crucial point of. I think I've heard it a lot of time, but I think what essentially is like playing by your strengths. So identifying self-awareness of what are the areas that we are most passionate about, and then there's no magic word with mentorship or sponsorship, but essentially building a trust relationship, actually doing work and building that credibility, and then going for it. So on a tangent note, I'll ask Mona. You have been both in corporate culture and startup world. You've worked in startups and you have your own startup. What is the biggest culture shift that you see, and also challenges with say corporate, or what basically motivated you to start your own startup? And can you tell a little bit more about that?
How long do we have? This is going to be a therapy session. So I think Fatima's point is incredibly valid, which is the more you know about your own peak performance mode, and to me, peak performance is not about being happy, satisfied, content, not stressed. That's what you take a vacation for. Like, that's not real life. And I think we glorify happiness and contentment. That is not peak performance. Fatma also said something great about stress. My therapist tells me stress is your body revving up to do something meaningful, right? So you just have to change your conditioning on what it means, right? The feeling can be very negative because that's the meaning you assign to it. So for me personally, I spent 12 years at Microsoft, and I realized I was not in peak performance mode. I was always given feedback: slow down, you move too fast, bring people along, learn how to be a good manager, work-life balance. I'm not good at any of those things. I operate in extremes. When I'm excited about something, time doesn't matter, food doesn't matter. Like last year, I was talking to my fitness coach. I walk 200 steps on average a day. You have to work really hard to walk that little per day, because I was just in the zone. Like, I was building my company and I was so excited about it. So I would say for me, Microsoft was and always will be home base. It's the kindest company I know, but 12 years in, I was feeling like I was not in peak performance mode, because all the things that I naturally am good at, I was being asked to tone down, be less of, right? And unlike Fatima, I don't do well in large matrixed organizations where I have to attend meetings with 1,700 people and everyone's perspective has to be heard. I go nuts. And so that's why I actually switched gears. Ultimately, my recognition was, if you haven't read this book called The Infinite Game, I encourage you to read it, because it helps you understand your personal why. For me, my personal why, I am not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by promotions. I don't give a fuck about title. Oh,
You're not supposed to use that.
But what I care about, my personal why, is the pursuit of excellence. Like, I'm always pushing. Can I do better? Can I be better? Can I learn something? So I wanted to pick environments where that was not only encouraged, it was necessary in my role, right? Because sometimes when you're great at something, but you're in the wrong environment, the results just don't show it, right? When you put the same person in a different race where they were meant to run and win, they win, right? And so for me, switching gears to the startup world was all about working in flow with myself. And I don't personally think of, like, I've done consumer work, I've done B2B work. I think hard problems are hard problems. My index has always been people, choosing the right people to work with, people that are smarter than me, people that are different, people that have skills that I don't have, so that I can learn from them as fast as possible. My former CEO, Kabir, used to call me the board. It was all just about assimilating people's skills and abilities. And then the journey of building my own company it's the next natural challenge, right? Something I've never done before. It's greenfield. It's incredibly exciting. I don't have kids. For me, this is my kid. Ultimately, my accountability is to the success of my business and our customers. So I think it gives me purpose.
It's very, very exciting to know. I think when you're saying that, I can relate to it. Not at my current job, but like, and so much at my home. Like, my husband is sitting here, so he might say, "Why are you saying this?" On record. But he's like that, right? And I can see that, and that's why he was like, "I'm done with corporate world. I have to jump to a startup, right?" And I see that. I'm like, "Why don't you sleep? Live on coffee, right?" So I hear you. I think that's again reaching out to your inner self and be authentic. What you are good at and pursuing that. I think it's amazing. So coming back to Muneeza, I think a lot of when I posted the event, a lot of feedback or questions that came in from a lot of people was actually asking Muneeza. She moved roles from you went from finance to AWS and then from AWS to Splunk. They're like somewhat related but very different at the same time. So how did you take the risk of if I'm thinking, say for example, switching jobs, like should I even go to cloud or not? Like that would be my first thought of things. So how did you take that leap of faith, and how do you think you're doing, and what were the things that were essential for you to be successful in your current role?
Yeah, I think I'll second what Fatima and Mona talked about, which is finding your superpower. And for me, I started realizing over the course of the career at Microsoft is that I'm able to, I love growing businesses and then I love data. I have infinite patience of diving deep and understanding the customer journey. And just working with, I was very fortunate at Microsoft to be in the cloud in the early days and had a broad portfolio. So I got to see a bunch of businesses get created and have a front row seat and participate in that. And I was just invited more and more into the decision making table. And it's like, there is value here that I'm providing, and it's another thing. Like I would self-edit and I actually had more to give. And so after 10 years, I was like, where do I want to go next? And I started to talk about the people that I had spent the 10 years working on various businesses and growing their businesses, and realized that there were people out there that needed my skills in other companies to do the same thing. And then I had built enough experience that I knew that if it didn't go well, I had something to come back to. So it was valuable. I was in a place that I had an established brand at Microsoft. I had a network of people that I had done, solved hard problems with that were elsewhere in various companies. So that gave me the comfort to move. And then it is about sponsorship. I actually did have someone who said, this is a particular problem I want you to solve, and come over and join me at AWS. Now, yes, it was scary. It's a different company, and in product management, it's really hard to get those roles. I did think about how am I going to add value. And I remember going to my first meeting, and there's reams of metrics that people are looking at, and I'm flipping through them, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I have made the wrong move. I am the dumbest person in this room. And then I just started asking questions, and I realized nobody else was understanding those metrics. and so then I said, okay, how about we do this thing? And then again, just looking at that customer journey, that was my superpower, resulted in being able to drive results. So I don't know. So I cheated, I guess, but the cheat happens with doing the hard work up front, take on those hard challenges, work with enough people, solve them. And that's how I think your mentors and your sponsors are discovered. And I think the other thing is if it's not working in a place, you can't, there's a limit to hard work. Change the circumstance. Find another hard problem to solve. So you'll have more opportunities. Someone to give you a break.
Awesome.
And I think I'll just add one thing Muneeza said, but I think being very clear, get over imposter syndrome. Everybody has it. Sure, accept that you're having this, and here's how I'm going to move on. So the fact that you said, okay, great, now I'm going to ask the question, how to get over it. And I think that's very important to recognize it and then to know how to counter that.
Yeah, so I was going to actually ask about that. like this is the perfect segue. So like based on research, we've seen like 75% women in US executives specifically have imposter syndrome. And I think we had a session, with PWiC last Saturday, Sunday, and we talked about this like in length, where it's so natural. Like it's so natural for us to doubt ourselves with anything. Like if I go in a room and I'm saying something like 3 times and nobody is listening, and then I realize, am I saying the wrong thing? Then I come back and check on data, and I'm like, no, I was right? So it's very, very natural. And so actually, I would like to add on to that and ask you guys as well. Like, first step is definitely realization that it's natural and it can happen to anybody. But how do you actually overcome that? As Muneeza said, right? It was asking that question is the first step. But what are other tactics and things that helps with overcoming imposter syndrome?
I think one other thing that Muneeza said was knowing your superpower. So I think like really understanding, starting from a position of what do I know I'm good at, right? And having that realization, because you can approach that and maybe you're not you're looking at metrics, but guess what? You are a finance person. So trust me, like there might be different set of metrics, but you probably know something there that nobody else does. So really starting from that position is super, super important. I find that the other times when you get in a situation like this is have allies. That really, really does help. If you yourself can't get yourself out of that, have somebody else who nudges you, asks the question, makes you kind of feel that. I think that's also important. And for me personally, what I feel is like always embrace being uncomfortable. I'm definitely not a risk taker like Mona is. Like I don't know if I'd be able to do that, but like really embracing being uncomfortable and learning is something that I constantly look at. If I'm very comfortable and I already know how to do the job, guess what? I'm doing a job that I shouldn't do. Somebody else should be doing it. So if I'm not constantly in the situation where I'm questioning myself, I'm not learning. And so look at the positive side of having an imposter syndrome is that is what's going to force you to stretch beyond your limits.
Yep. I think a few things. One, my Nani Amma always used to say that we all spend a lot of time thinking about what other people are thinking about us, and everyone is thinking about what other people are thinking about them. Nobody cares about you. So I think just like first and foremost, having a sense of humor about yourself. None of this matters. Like we all made it. We're all fine. Everything's okay. So we're coming from a position of wholeness instead of a position of inadequacy. What's the worst that can happen if you say something stupid in a meeting? You said something stupid in a meeting. Like you still have health insurance, your mortgage is still gonna get paid, your husband's still gonna love you, your dogs will still lick your face in the morning. Like all the things that are important are true regardless, right? So I think that's one. Second thing I'll say, if you haven't read The Art of Impossible, I encourage you to read it. It's one of my favorite books. This guy is phenomenal. He talks about how he was terrified, had the worst imposter syndrome about public speaking. And so he talks about how he would practice his speeches when he was doing an incredibly difficult hike up a mountain after not sleeping for 24 hours, right? Because if you can deliver that speech when you're out of breath and you're sleepless and you can barely put one foot in front of the other, guess what? When you show up on that stage, I own this. I have this. I can do it. So I think it's about practice. Again, we have such tremendous neuroplasticity, right? You can rewire your physiology and your chemistry to welcome the stress, welcome the anxiety, turn it into anticipation, because magical things happen,
Amazing. I think there's one Dale Carnegie principle, which is very much related of like, it's like, how do you break that stress cycle so that you don't go in depression? And it essentially says that, if you have constant stress, that can lead to depression. But the way you break your stress is exactly what you said. It's like, think about the worst that can happen, right? Like, if this doesn't go well, I lose my job. That's the worst thing. Like, do the bare minimum to not lose your job. Don't aim for the perfect thing. Aim for the better than the worst, and then you'll do, once you're out of that loop of stress, you'll do a lot better. It might not be the perfect thing, but that at least will bring you out, because if you're stuck in that loop, you are just wasting too much energy on that stress itself. So I think that's amazing. One, I think before I open it up for questions, and I think I want it to be more interactive, so I'll open it up to the audience if anybody has one question. I think one thing I like before we open for question is, for each of you, anything that in your journey you think that has really contributed towards your success, or one thing that you think if you have told your 20 years ago to yourself, and that would have even made things more better, what would be that? And I really want to have that for young girls here, or like other people who are listening us online and want to be mindful of that.
I'll start with being like sort of the lessons learned. I think just don't hold yourself back. And the imposter syndrome is one of them. Just think big and be fearless. The sooner you can do that, the better. I think that for me has been the thing that has helped me back the most. And then in terms of helping take on, again, it's going to be the opposite of that. Just be fearless in taking on those hard problems, because that is where the reward lies. If you shy away from that, you're not going to make it. And I think that has really helped me to create opportunities for myself.
I think the other one is stand up for yourself, because nobody else, to your point that you made earlier, nobody else is going to be doing that, because they're all mostly going to be looking at what they need to be doing. So make sure that you are your best advocate. Make sure that you think about where you want your career to be and be proactive about what you need to do about it. Because when you might think that's HR talk, like you own your career. No, guess what? You do own your career, because you're the one who cares about it the most. And that might mean whatever it might mean. It might mean money, it might mean promotions, it might mean working on things which people leave you alone and you can build new things. It can be all of those, but really be the person who is kind of your biggest champion and who's helping you along. It doesn't mean that you have to suck the oxygen from the room. It doesn't mean that you need to be the loudest person. Your job can be helping others, but you can still stand up for yourself and make sure you do.
I would say in terms of lessons learned, I remember someone telling me very early in my career when I was like, I think mid-20s, follow your passion. And I was like, what kind of idiot are you? You're American, you don't understand where we come from. It's all about unit economics, like safety, blah, 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 blah. It took me 20 years to get rid of that suitcase of values I was handed by my mother when I left Pakistan 22 years ago, right? And I think just recognizing that you only live once, like I know I'm saying like the Hallmark version of insight here, but it really is confounding to me that out of all the Pakistanis in the world, we get to be the very few that can literally do anything. We're like the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Why wouldn't we do more? It's just so inspiring and hopeful to be given a chance, mostly through accident, that we get to be here and we get to live this life. So it's going to be amazing to see what kind of story we can write, It better be a good one. Otherwise, what a shame. What a waste. So I guess that's the lesson. Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah.
And be selfish. Yes.
Totally.
I think one thing I'd like to add to that is be authentic, right? I've seen it very common, being a Pakistani as well. A lot of Pakistanis that when I came in here, I'm a very social, outgoing person. Muneeza knows me from the very first days. I remember going to her place and telling what I'm telling to my manager and whatnot. And one thing that I got from them, they were like, he's not your father. I was telling him everything, each and everything, because I didn't know I didn't know what to say or not to say, right? I'm like, yeah, you're right. Why am I telling everything to my manager? And he might be totally judging me, right? So I think that's another thing that I've learned along the way is you can keep your authentic self. If you are, Pakistani or, whatever you are good at, be authentic. You don't have to change yourself to get being successful in whichever path you feel comfortable. You don't have to compare with anybody, but just be authentic to what you are and see where you go from there. Like if you are authentic, you'll have success, and that could be success means different things to different people, right? And just make sure that you have the success that you want to be in. And with that, I'll open it up to questions for our audience and see. Okay.
I can start. If one of you can share like a failure story where you learn, I know you guys shared some of like lessons learned, but like a particular failure, particular incident that we can all learn from, how would it be?
Our favorite.
Where to start?
Like, which one to pick? I mean, are you asking about a work failure?
I think most of us, like generally how we manage everything, like most of us, we are women, especially listening online. So anything that you learned from that, that would be useful for us.
Yeah, I'll talk about, sort of work failure, and then just kind of how to cope with that, which was a sort of big project I personally took on, and thought it would be successful, spent probably close to a year, or a little bit over a year working on that, and it didn't go as planned because there was something in the learnings that I hadn't gone deep enough, and customers did not adopt that particular thing that I had worked over a year on. And I think the thing for me that I learned is that, it's like, I'm done, this is over, take it very personally. And I think this was one of my mentors saying like, hey, you win some, you lose some, and had to remind me of all of the things that had been successful. And I think it speaks to us being our worst critic or thinking about what people are thinking of us. Like, we are so much more than our failures, and everybody has failures. It's okay. Being able to get up and move on and, step back and actually learn from them is important. So I think that's, and it happens to everybody. And I think most of us that have been around a while, it's happened often enough that it's just, common sense that it will.
I can just add to that. I think, like, to Muneeza's point, like, people think that successful people have a successful career the entire time. Actually, that's not true. Most successful people will have ups and downs in their career, and so I think that's really recognizing when you're on a down and how do you get to the up is really, really important. For me, one of my failures was like one of my early jobs at Microsoft. I stayed there for like 5 years, and I got to a point where I realized I was the problem. Like, I had done something for so long where somebody would say, oh, we should do this. I'm like, no, we shouldn't, because here's why. We've tried this 200 times and here doesn't work. And so really, like, that understanding that I am the one that is causing the team to block was kind of my biggest thing. And really, I could say, oh, I recognized it. I didn't. My manager recognized it, and he said, like, this is happening, and here's why. And it was a shock to me, but it was like, and then I realized, no, actually, that is true. This is how my behavior is impacting everybody around me, and how I need to change the circumstances. And sometimes, and in that case, I was like, I'm going to just change what I do. Like, I've done something long enough that I need to go try something else. And that's where I learned the lesson, like, always be uncomfortable. If you are not learning and doing something new, then you're probably getting stuck in a rut and you're taking people down with you. So that was one of my big ones.
I'll give you a heartbreaking example. It's a recurring theme in my life. I fall in love with people, I fall in love with ideas, and when I do, confirmation bias kicks in. I'm just like, this is it. You are it. This is it. Done, finished, right? We pivoted twice because of this mistake. Because when we started Falcon, I had a vision. It was my vision. It was beautiful. It was going to be perfect. Missed one very critical insight. We were trying to automate an analyst's job. No analyst wants their job to be automated. And they were the prerequisite to using our product and onboarding it. So it's like, how do you break that cycle? Anyone on the outside could have figured that loop out in about 5 minutes. it took me 9 months to figure out, oh, the product's amazing, but no one wants to use it because it makes people feel useless. People don't buy software that makes them feel useless. They buy software that makes them feel useful, right? Oh, okay, got it. Very obvious in hindsight. Did the same thing again with the second pivot, by the way. So didn't learn the first time at all. My coping mechanism or technique, because look, the very thing that makes me fall in love with ideas is the thing that makes me jump off cliffs and do weird stuff, some of which ends up being very magical. So it's like very core to who I am. It's also my strength. So I'm never gonna be a different person. So what I've done this time around is added people around me who are like holding on to me and saying, no, you must validate, write down all your assumptions. Someone else has to do the research so that you're not biased, and we can then evaluate it and make this decision as a team of 4 people instead of Mona saying we need to go left, everybody go left, right? So the reason I wanted to share this example is, one, I don't think you always have to be the fix to your own problems. A really great way to fix your problems is to hire people around you that are innately good at the things that you suck at, right? But then you have to let them do their job, because if they were hired to be your roadblock and your challenger, you have to create the space for them to challenge you safely, right? So I don't know if I've learned the lesson, but third pivot.
That's amazing. I think it's really important also to the point that it's how you, which kind of people you surround yourself with is really, very important at work, at a startup or anywhere else, because that will either bring you down, or it's also like we usually say that, hiring in a team, hire better people than you, right? So having that mindset of being open, if it's going to be just like people, everybody's going to say yes, sir, that's just not going to work. Okay, any more questions? Go ahead, Ayisha.
Just to build up on the failure examples that we're sharing, just curious, when do you guys know when to move on? Be it pivoting a company, pivoting a product, just switching jobs. What kind of principles do you kind of govern yourself by, and saying, hey, this is time for next chapter?
I think I'll kind of what Mona said. Who are your board of advisors, right? And a company, you literally have a board of advisors, but in your personal career as well, you need your board of advisors who know you well enough, who understand what you're going through, who you can go to and ask for advice on here's what's happening and what I need to do. So I think really being very conscious about identifying those set of people and then going to them and asking them. And some of them might be people who work for you, that's all fine, but you need the outside in perspective.
I think just another take on that is, I think when you feel like you've done that root cause, like, we get it, this is probably why. I think in your case, you said, I get it, it's the analyst that's blocking my adoption, and then you move on.
And specifically in the analyst example, right, to make it super real. No idea. You don't need a mic. So we talked to 25 companies and we succeeded with 2. That's interesting, right? That's data. That's statistically significant somewhat. It's still small data, but we basically, exactly as Muneeza said, you debug, right? You say, okay, it could be a problem with my pitch. I could be talking to the wrong company. I could be saying things the wrong way. I could be doing demo the wrong way, or it's just the wrong thing, right? First, eliminate the easy things because pivots are expensive. Decisions like big decisions, one-way doors, require more due diligence in ruling out more obvious causes before you switch. I would also say that building a timeline, right? So if I am unhappy about something for 30 days in a row, there's something systemically wrong. It's not emotions. It's not me having a bad day because had a bad conversation with my mom that morning, right? It's something fundamental. So signal number one is a month of misery. Nope, seems like something's off. So that's detection. The second part is build a timeline, which is what must I see in the next 3 months for me to have conviction that this is the right path for me or not? How am I going to go get signal on my assumptions about why I'm miserable or unhappy or something isn't working out? And then it's all about being very religious about getting the data that you need. Again, based on my assumption is the problem could be A, B, C, D. I'm going to systematically rule them out. That's an engineer's way, I guess, of solving life problems. I've applied that to dating. I've applied that to personal relationships, pivots. Seems to work for the most part.
And I'd like to add to that, I think the basic rule of thumb that one of my friends shared is really is like make a pros and cons list for anything, any even basic decision. Make a pros and cons list, and if you can clearly see, because when you have something in your mind, you're always biased toward one thing based off of, oh, this one has, this is what I want, but this one has more money or X, Y, Z. So put the factors out there so you have a visual representation of what you're looking at, right? And then I think outside perspective is definitely important, because you might be looking at something from one lens and other people might, who are more experienced in that area, might have another lens to that. So reaching out to your mentors, reaching out to your network. And then I think one crucial thing that's important to kind of both of those of like, I go this way or that way is like, sometimes you just have to try it out, right? Sometimes you just spend too much time on thinking that if I should do it. So unless you try it, you won't know if it was good or not. So maybe sometimes if you have, as I think Muneeza was saying, if you have a fallback plan, what if I fail? I can always come back, right? If you have that credibility and trust, you just try it out and then come back, right? If that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And I'd actually like to add an example to that. Like when I switched from pre-medical to CCS, for me it was like a huge setback in the sense because I had to miss a year. I had to do additional maths, which was a prereq for CS at that time. So I was like, everybody was like, oh, sal zaya ho gaya, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I just wasted a whole year. But to this day, I'm like so happy. It doesn't matter, right? So sometimes those small failures that at that point in time looks really, really big might just not be a thing in the bigger picture. Not so sure. Any more questions? Do we have any question online?
No, we don't.
Sounds good.
I just wanted to ask a question about prioritization. This is something very personal. Sometimes I feel like if I want to take a bigger challenge, it's going to come at the cost of my personal responsibility, right? So how have you all been able to prioritize, make sure you're still like going forward in your career, but then you feel like, you're being fair to other responsibilities that you might have outside of, your work? Or time management, I guess, one of the two.
I think I'm guilty of not doing that well. I think one of my New Year resolutions this year was to get over the guilt.
Okay.
I have young kids, so I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and kids at that age are pretty demanding. So like for me, it's a constant thing of balancing them out. Like I was telling people earlier, like my 3-year-old went to Chuck E. Cheese and got herself a cold, which was miserable. And then because the cold looks like a COVID, nobody is going to give her backup care. She couldn't go to daycare. So it's really mommy and daddy to the rescue. So it was, while I have crazy days, it was like, great. So guess what? I'm going to work for half day. And then Ali's going to work for half day and we're going to watch the kids. So it's just a trade-off that we made, which meant that there's a bunch of stuff that I needed to take care of that didn't get done. So sometimes I feel like, especially with young kids, you just have to make it through the day. I think don't make yourself feel that you have all of this stuff you need to do. Sometimes you just need to get through the day, you need to get through the week, and that's okay. And you get to the other end and you're like, okay, now let me figure out what the long-term plan is. So one of the other things when I said this year, my New Year's resolution was I'll feel less guilty is I decided I'm going to hire more babysitters and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. So I joke about it, but I outsource giving my daughters a bath. That's maybe it makes me a bad mother. I don't know. I haven't done it, but that gave me the space to kind of do some things which I had to do anyway. But instead of being a bad mother who wasn't paying attention to her kids and trying to do this, like I can now focus on that, and they're being taken care of. So I think sometimes the answer to these things are not nice. They're not the ones that you want to advertise. They're not the ones that people will pat you on the back for, but it's okay because you're just trying to make it through.
And I can add, I mean, I think the advantage for me is that I did grow up with a working mother. And so, were there times when we were growing up that I felt that I wanted her to be more available? Sure. But then did I, respect, or was I close to her and my sisters? Yes, we were. And I don't think the outcomes we had were any different than folks where they did have their parents more available for them. So I think for me that is a comfort because I know that it can be done. And then I completely agree on the outsourcing part. I remember with my first job, when I went back to work after having my kids, I have twins that are now 17 and a 16-year-old. So they were all kind of close together, and I took a couple of years off right after when I had all of them. And I remember I wasn't getting paid much in that first job, and my mom was like, even if all of your money goes to daycare, like it's a long-term investment. And I was miserable at home. I was not a very nice mother being at home. And so actually outsourcing some of the grunt work worked out well. I was happier. They were, getting taken care of. And it was hard, and we had to figure out, went daycare, that was too expensive, hired babysitters, that didn't work. We did au pairs for a bunch of time. But all of my money did go to childcare. But they're 17 and 16 now, and that was a good investment.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to add to that. And I think, sorry, I have the mic, so I don't need to get the mic. But I was gonna say, Muneeza has been my go-to person if I'm feeling down on are my kids gonna be fine? After 10 years, I'm not being a good mom. So I think having people around, such examples who have kids so both of my kids are 2 and 6. So I think I've been in the same bucket as Fatima of I think my 2-year-old has been almost home the whole time, and she knows she can just jump right into, any meeting and whatnot during COVID. So that was definitely a challenge. But then again, if she's going to take care, and if guilt is real, right? It happens with all of us. So I think outsourcing, and one of my PM team members, she was great at explaining this. He's like, how much do you earn per hour, right? Write that down. And then if you're cleaning your house for an hour, how much money are you spending, right? She's like, save that money, just lay down and hire somebody to clean your house for. Because I used to clean my house all the time. Why should I call somebody? They'll come and then I have to manage the schedule and whatnot. And she did the math for me. She's like, this is how you earn. And this is how much if you pay somebody. So you are in net benefit, right? You can just watch TV or, do whatever, be relaxed, be a good mom. And yeah, that's absolutely right. So I think finding that recipe and taking it day to day, right? I think that's another thing, compartmentalizing. A lot of people who are balancing it is by doing 1 day at a time, 1 week at a time. You cannot plan the whole thing. It has to be 1 day at a time or, 1 week at a time. And then also, I think guilt will always come. I don't think there's a good recipe for that, but it's just fighting one fight at a time, essentially. I think that helps.
I'd say as Muneeza is proof, the kids get old.
Yes. It goes back.
I think you had one?
Is there a surprising learning or an aha moment that you can share that you think would be useful to other working people?
The kids get old.
I have one.
You gotta have the mic.
And then mic drop.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll just leave. Okay, so this is a recent one, which is physical discomfort and mental discomfort are exactly the same. So if you want mental toughness, get physically tough. It's the same thing. it's just this ability to go past the wall that is, I can't do it. This hill is really high. This treadmill is going too fast. I cannot do one more push up. I will die. It's the exact same mindset that is at play. I can't talk to another investor. I cannot get rejected by one more prospect. Like all of it is exactly the same. So I think a really good cheat to mental toughness is hardcore physical exertion and physical toughness. That's a new one. It's been amazing.
Good question. Does that mean you're doing more than 300 steps a day?
Dude, I am killing it. I actually got a fitness instructor in November, and for the first time in my life, I did a bench press, which was larger than my body weight 2 weeks ago. So I'm good. Thank you.
I think on that note, we'll say thank you to everybody, and we'll connect here every second Wednesday of the month. So we're looking forward to more people to come and join us, and thank you to our great panelists here for spending their time with us. I think it was amazing. We have a small tea break and more networking that we can do on one-on-one.
And I also want to thank Ayisha because she's incredible. I've seen her, like, she has young kids like mine, and she does not stop. Like between her work and all the things, like she mentioned, she's working in PWiC with Open Seattle. She's passionate about doing things for Pakistan. She's all over it. So sometimes I'm jealous of her energy. That is the one thing that I need more of as well.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you.
It's inspirational.